Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Can you hear me? Oh, yay, good. Okay. Oh, they're on. Okay, is that good? Uh, would everybody please double check your cell phone? Make sure it's off. Everybody, please. We were in a meeting yesterday and people just totally forgot. Crazy, absolutely crazy. Okay, well, we are almost in Slichot, which begins tonight. And there will be a service this evening, which I'll tell you about, which you've all gotten notice of. We're in the month of Elul, preparing for the high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Nice, Jim. This Shabbat offers us an opportunity to get ready for Slichot and Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. We are reminded of God's commandments and the importance of observing faithfully the mitzvot. This is a time of tshuva, of returning, of remembering what we did and didn't do this past year, and of thinking about how we can improve our behaviors in the new year. Beth Israel Slichot services are tonight, and the schedule is, I'll tell you what it is. At 5:30 is the Young Family service. I don't know if any of you are going to go to the Young Family service, but it's at 5:30. And it's followed by a BYO dinner. 7:30 is a pre-neg, like an oneg, except it's before. Get that? And then at 7:30 is a meditative moment thing with Julie Potiker. And at 8:15 is the Slichot service with our clergy. Hi, Sandy. And it's going to be on YouTube. Thank you. That's good to know. Okay. And I'm reading a book by David Wolpe, Rabbi David Wolpe, called Floating Takes Faith. Floating Takes Faith, which is really, it's really a compilation of a lot of his short essays. And at the very beginning, he asks this question: where are you? Where are you? God asks this question of Adam, though surely God didn't need to know Adam's location, physical location. We can safely assume that God meant it this way: where are you spiritually? Where are you morally? What have you done with your life, and what are you doing with it now? And are you proud of your conduct? We might ask ourselves these questions now at the very beginning of the High Holy Days. So let's begin our service on page 8, which is also page 126 in the other book. Page 8. This is a poem that was written by Ruth Bryn. Some of you may be familiar with her work. I begin with a prayer of gratitude for all that is holy in my life. God needs no words, no English or Hebrew, no semantics, and no services, but I need them. Through prayer, I can sense my inner strength, my inner purpose, my inner joy, my capacity to love. As I reach upward in prayer, I sense these qualities in my Creator. To love God is to love each other, to work and to make our lives better. To love God is to love the world God created and to work to perfect it. To love God is to love dreams of peace and joy that illumine all of us, and to bring that vision to life. We'll be on page 10 or 128, and we will be singing Hine Ma Tov, led by Gordon. Hine Ma Tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov u'manayim, shevet achim gam yachad. Hine ma tov, hine ma tov. Yada-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hine matov, hine matov. Yada-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hine matov umanayim. Yada-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Hine matov umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Hine matov umanayim. Shevet achim gam yachad. Good, we're sounding good. That's nice. On page 65 or 183, 65. Let us praise Adonai, source of knowledge and light, from whom we draw wisdom and insight. Let us savor the fullness of each and every day and fill our souls with the treasures of Shabbat. And let us appreciate these distinctions: sacred from profane, charity from greed, purpose from drift. Let us affirm our covenant as God's people. Let us honor those who study Torah. Let us uphold the truth of ongoing revelation. Let us also celebrate the glory of our tradition and draw refreshment from the well springs of prayer. Let us respect tradition and encourage creative faith. And let us dress ourselves in the garments of God, compassion for the needy, embrace of the stranger, and then spread the canopy of peace over the world. On page 66 or 184, each of us enters this sanctuary with a different need. Would you all join me together, please? Some hearts are full of peace and gratitude, overflowing with love and joy. They are eager to confront the day, to make the world a better place. They are recovering from illness or have escaped misfortune. We rejoice with them. Some hearts ache with sorrow. Disappointments weigh heavily on them. Families have been broken. Loved ones lie on a bed of pain. Death has taken a cherished loved one. May our presence and caring bring them comfort. Some hearts are embittered. Ideals are betrayed and mocked, answers sought in vain. Life has lost its meaning and value. May the knowledge that we too are searching restore our hope and renew our faith. Who does not hunger for friendship, understanding, warmth, and love? Chazak, chazak, b'nitzchak. Let us lend strength to one another and pray for the welfare of this community. And now, page 73 or 191. Page 73. This is a passage by Yehuda Amichai, who was a wonderful poet from Israel. Whoever wrapped in a talit in one's youth will never forget taking it out of the soft sack, opening the folded talit, spreading it, kissing the border along its length, sometimes embroidered and sometimes embossed. Afterwards, a great sweep over the head like the heavens, like a chuppah, like a parachute. Afterwards, folding it around one's head as if playing hide and seek, and then wrapping the body in it tight, tight, letting it fold you like a cocoon, and then opening it like wings for flying. And why are there stripes and not black and white squares like a chessboard? Because squares are finite, without hope, and stripes come from infinity and go on to infinity like the runways at the airport, so that angels may land and take off. When you wrap yourself in a talit, you cannot forget coming out of a swimming pool or the sea and being wrapped in a great towel and casting it over one's head and wrapping in it tight, tight, and shivering a little and laughing and blessing. I like that. So on page 72, in the middle of the page first, we'll read the Hebrew and then the English translation. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech olam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvot tov, v'tzivanu latitate bat tzitzit. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to wrap ourselves in the fringe. Thank you. Page 75, or 193. May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take the friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest. Now we're going to go to page 77, or 195. There's a prayer of thanks for our bodies. And if you can join me on the top of page 77, we'll read the English. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe. With divine wisdom you have made our bodies, combining veins, arteries, and vital organs into a finely balanced network. Wondrous maker and sustainer of life, were one of them to fail, how well we are aware, we would lack the strength to stand before you. Blessed are you, Adonai, source of our health and strength. Baruch atah Adonai, rofei kol basar umafli la'asot. And on page 79 at the top and 197 is a prayer of thanks for our souls. Please join me in that one. Matter is never destroyed, only transformed. So too can the soul evolve higher and higher from instinct to inspiration, haughtiness to holiness, selfishness to service, from individualism to union, to join with the soul of souls, the infinite one. As the soul is magnified and sanctified, so is the infinite one exalted. Baruch atah Adonai, asher biado nefesh kol chai, v'ruach kol basar ish. Great. And on page 81, or 199, I can stay the tears of others if I can see myself as diminished by their sorrows. I can hasten time when everyone will be able to rejoice in freedom. And if I can see myself as the companion of those fighting against oppression, I can honor the struggle of people everywhere to gain dignity and deliverance from bondage. When I look at myself in the mirror, who will I see? On page 83, or 201, how about joining me in this one also? As I awaken, let this be my thought. May my day be filled with acts of loving kindness. Let me be drawn to learning and discernment, and may my actions be shaped by mitzvot. Keep me from iniquity, disgrace, and sin. May I not be overwhelmed by temptation or despair. Distance me from evil people and false friends. Let me cultivate a life of goodness. May my hands reach out in kindness, and I will serve God through acts of righteousness. Today and every day, may I merit your mercy by living my life with compassion and love. Holy One of blessing, draw me to your words. Teach me the art of sacred living. Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. On page 88, these are things that are limitless, of which a person enjoys the fruit of the world, while the principle remains in the world to come. They are honoring one's father and mother, engaging in deeds of compassion, arriving early for study, morning and evening, dealing graciously with guests, visiting the sick, providing for the wedding couple, accompanying the dead for burial, being devoted in prayer, and making peace among people. and the study of Torah encompasses them all. All right. Page 102, or 220, 102. I think we should all read this one together, also in English. Even if our mouths were full of song as the sea, and our tongues full of joy in countless waves, and our lips full of praise as wide as the sky's expanse, and were our eyes to shine like sun and moon, if our hands were spread out like heaven's eagles, and our feet swift like young deer, we could never thank you adequately, Adonai, our God and God of our ancestors, to bless your name for 10,000th of the many myriads of times you granted favors to our ancestors and to us. Page 108 is the beginning of the Shema and its blessings on page 108 or 226. Please rise for this. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 la lai 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 lai. Lai la lai 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 lai. Baruch hu et Adonai Hamevorach Baruch Adonai Hamevorach Hamevorach Le'olam Va'ed Hamevorach Hamevorach Le'olam Va'ed. Please be seated. And on page 110 or 228, we'll read the top in Hebrew and then the bottom in English. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam yotzer or uvarei choshech oseh shalom uvarei et hakol hameir la'aretz v'ladarim alecha barachamim uvtuvo makadesh b'chal yom tamid ma'aseh v'reishit ma rabu ma'asecha Adonai kulam b'chakma asita mal haaretz kinyanecha titbarach Adonai Eloheinu al sheva ma'aseh yadecha va'al ma'orei or she'asita yifarucha selah or hadash al tzion ta'ir v'nizke kulanu mehira loro baruch atah Adonai yotzer hama'orot. And in English, praised are you, Adonai our God, sovereign of the universe, creator of light and darkness, who makes peace and fashions all things. In mercy you illumine the world and those who live upon it. In your goodness you daily renew creation. How numerous are your works, Adonai. In wisdom you formed them all, filling the earth with your creatures. Be praised, Adonai our God, for the excellent work of your hands and for the lights you created. May they glorify you. Shine a new light upon Zion, that we all may swiftly merit its radiance. Praised are you, Adonai, creator of all heavenly lights. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer hama'orot. And on page 111, or 229 at the top. This was written by Rabbi Elise Frischman. In the beginning, even then, a new light was sown for the righteous, a promise that your light would become the catalyst, first for order and then for hope. Author of language and light, help us to use words as you have, to cast light into dark waters and draw out justice and truth. Baruch atah Adonai, yotzer hama'orot. And then on page 113, There are two passages that I really like a lot on page 113 or 231. Once or twice in a lifetime, a man or woman may choose a radical leaving, having heard Lech Lecha, go forth. God disturbs us toward our destiny by hard events and by freedom's now urgent voice, which explode and confirm who we are. We don't like leaving, but God loves becoming. Baruch atah Adonai habocher bi'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. Love your neighbor as yourself, you said, and light-blinded, we saw that inner and outer worlds are one as you are one. You spoke and we wrote. We reached for you down the centuries, your light moving before us as we climbed, fell back, and climbed again, your Sinai of life. Baruch atah Adonai habocher bi'amo Yisrael bi'ahava. Please rise if you can for the Shema on page 114 and 115, or 232 and 233. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. 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 Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Le'olam Va'ed. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad. Please be seated. On page 116 is the V'ahavta. Let's do that in Hebrew. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavcha u'v'chol nafshecha u'v'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'eleh asher anochi mitzavecha Hayom alevavecha, vishinantam levanecha, vidibartabam, vishiftecha b'veitecha, uvleftecha baderek, uvshaktecha uvikumecha, ukshartam liod ayodecha, v'hayulatotafod beineinecha. Uktavtam amazuzot beitecha uvisharecha liman tizkaru va'asitem et kol mitzvotai v'tem kedoshim le'Elohechem ani Adonai Elohechem asher hotzeiti etchem Me'eretz Mitzrayim, lihyot lachem le'Elohim, ani Adonai Elohechem, emet. On page 117, in the middle of the page, is a passage by Rabbi Richard Levy, and I'd like to read that with you. I'll read the beginning, you read the indented paragraphs, okay? If we can hear the words from Sinai, then love will flow from us, and we shall serve all that is holy and all our intellect and all our passion and all our life. If we can serve all that is holy, we shall be doing all that humans can to help the rains to flow, the grasses to be green, the grains to be golden like the sun, and the rivers to be filled with life once more. All the children of God shall eat, and there will be enough. But if we turn from Sinai's words and serve only what is common and profane, making gods of our own comfort or power, then the holiness of life will contract for us. Our world will grow inhospitable. Let us therefore lace these words into our passion and our intellect, and bind them as a sign upon our hands and eyes, and teach them to our children. Let us honor the generations that came before us, keeping the promise for those yet to be. On page 119, or 237, in the middle is a passage by Abraham Joshua Heschel. Life without integrity is like loosely hanging threads, easily fraying from the main cloth. While in acts of piety, we learn to understand that every instant is like a thread raveling out of eternity to form a delicate tassel. We must not cast off the threads, but weave them into the design of an eternal fabric. Each day points to eternity. The fate of all time depends upon a single moment. Something to think about. On page 121, or 239 at the top. This is by Rabbi Elise Frischman also. Emet, there is no place where you are not. Even in the wilderness, there is your word. Emet, that pen strokes of lightning, white fire, black flame, stir the soul's passion, guide our sacred way. True and enduring is Torah. Your truth for us is certain and established, now and forevermore. Like Moses, Miriam, and all Israel, we sing out and rejoice, which we will very soon. On page 120, sorry, we just did that. On page 122, we will sing. Page 122 or 240, Michamocha. Michamocha, Bailim Adonai, Michamocha, Nedar Bakodesh, Norati Lot, O Sefeleh, Norati Lot, O Sefer, hey, bye bye bim 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 bam, yabba bye bim bam, yabba bye bim 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 bam, yabba bye bim bam, ay 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 ay, yabba bye bim bam, ay 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 ay, yabba bye bim bam. Shirach Kadasha Shibachu Geulim Lishimcha Asfat Hayam Yachad Kulam Hodu V'Yimlech Yamru Adonai Yimloch Leolam Va'ed. Hey, bye bye bim 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 bam, yabba bye bim bam. Yap bye bye bim 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 bam, yabba bye bim bam. Ay 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 ay, yabba bye bim bam. Ay 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 ay, yabba bye bim bam. Kuma Yisrael, Yisrael, Ufadeh Kenumecha, Yehuda Yisrael. Go Aleinu Adonai. Adonai, God. Please be seated. On page 123 or 241 is a passage by Hugh Nissenson. The good in us will win over all the wickedness, over all the wrongs we have done. We will look back at the pages of written history and be amazed, and then we will laugh and sing. And the good that is in us, children in their cradles, will have won. Our hearts beat with certainty that there is a day and an hour and a mountain called Zion, and that all of the sufferings will gather there and become song, ringing out into every corner of the earth from end to end, and the nations will hear it, and like the caravans in the desert will all to that morning throng. I just like that passage. It's reassuring. Okay, now we're on page 124 for the tefillah. Please rise. Adonai sifatai tivta ufia geta hilatecha. Eternal God, open our lips that our mouths may declare your glory. Wait a minute. You can stay standing. On page 125 or 243 is a passage by Abraham Heschel also. Prayer invites God's presence to suffuse our spirits, God's will to prevail in our lives. Prayer may not bring water to parched fields, nor mend a broken bridge, nor rebuild a ruined city. But prayer can water an arid soul, mend a broken heart, rebuild a weakened will. Now, page 126 or 244. Ata Adonai Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Hagadol, Hagibor, V'Hanorah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei HaKol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imaot, U'Mevi Geula Livnei V'neihem, Leman Shemo B'Ahava, Melech Ozer U'Moshiach U'Magen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Be'ezrat Sarah. 128. Atah Gibor Le'olam Adonai, Mechaye HaKol Atah, Rav Lehoshiach, Morid Hatal, Mechachel Chayim Bechesed, Mechaye HaKol Berachamim Rabim. So mech noflim v'rofei cholim, umatir asurim, umekayem emunato lishenei afar. Michamocha b'gevurot, umido melach, melech memid, umechayeh, umat mi'at Yeshua, v'ne'emanata lechayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, mikadei hakol. 130. Nikadesh et shimcha ba'olam, kishem makdeshim koto bishmei marom, kakatu v'yad neviecha, v'korazeh el zei ke'amar, kadosh, 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 Adonai Ma'adir Shimcha B'Kol Haaretz. Baruch Kivod Adonai Mimkomo. Echad Hu Eloheinu, Hu Avinu Malkeinu, Hu Moshienu B'Hu Yashmienu, Perachamav Li'enei Kol Han. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai Leolam, Elohai et Sion, Lidor Vador. Hallelujah. Lidor Vador Nagid Gad Lecha, Ul Netzach Netzachim Kedushachach Nagdish, V'Shivchacha Eloheinu, Mipinu Lo Yamush Leolam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. To all generations we will declare your greatness, and for all eternity proclaim your holiness. Your praise, O God, shall never depart from our lips. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. Baruch Atah Adonai Ha'el HaKadosh. Please be seated. And I want to share with you something that's not in your book. I found it in my book, but I don't know how it got there. I don't even know who wrote it, but it just seemed great. The universe was brought forth by an inexhaustible creative power. It pours out torrents of energy still. Awesome and wondrous and mysterious, it is the source of our being. Matter was formed out of chaos. Time passed, time beyond imagining. Matter crossed a boundary and became life. Time passed, and life gave birth to us. Our universe is being formed at every moment. We too are not yet grown to full height, but ours is a special gift for a special task, to help in our own shaping. For we were made to be free, free to love or to hate, free to destroy or to create. We are like mountain climbers on a perilous ascent. Often we stumble, sometimes it seems we may dash ourselves on the rocks below. But there is hope, for dimly we have seen a vision and felt a presence and faintly heard a voice not ours. The blazing stars, particles too small to see, the smile of children, the eyes of lovers, melody filling the soul, a flood of joy surprising the heart, mystery at the core of the plainest things, all tell us that we are not alone. They open our eyes to the vision that steadies and sustains us. Okay, now, I think we need a little rousing Sim Shalom on page 140. So if you'll turn to page 140, which is also 258, and a rousing Sim Shalom. Sim Shalom, Tova Uvracha, Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Al Kol Yisrael Amecha, Barcheinu Yatzreinu Kulanu Ve'Echad, V'Or Panecha, Ki V'Or Panecha Natata Lanu, Adonai Eloheinu. Kim Shalom Tova Uvracha, Chen V'Chesed V'Rachamim Aleinu, V'Al Kol Yisrael, V'Al Kol Yisrael Amecha. To introduce the Torah service, there's a passage I'm going to read to you. It's from the book, but you don't have to turn to that page. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, Ohev Amo Yisrael. And page 244 or 362 is the beginning of the Torah service. 244 or 362, God bless you. Ein kamocha ba'Elohim Adonai, v'ein kema'asecha, malchutecha malchut kol amim, u'memsheltecha b'chal dor v'ador. Adonai melech, Adonai malach, Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed, Adonai os li'amo yitein, Adonai yivarech et amo v'shalom. Please rise. Al-Rachamim Heitiv Avertzoncha Et Zion Tivnei Chomot Yerushalayim Tivnei Chomot Yerushalayim Ki v'chad v'bad v'taknu Ki Mitzion tetzei Torah, Ki Mitzion tetzei Torah, Udevos Baruch Shenatan Torah, Baruch Shenatan Torah, Le'amo Yisrael B'kedushato, Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Echad Eloheinu, Kadlu Adonai Yitim, Umerambama Shemo Yahdav. B'hatiferet, b'chamei tzavtechaho, Kibor b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Kibor b'shamayim u'ba'aretz, Lecha Adonai Adonai Eloheinu
Have two aliot.
Take off your mask.
All right, if you insist.
Yeah, I
Wait a
can hear you
second.
better.
Let me put this down and take off my glasses. It's complicated. Okay. We will have two aliot. The first for people who are observing a yard site or remembering someone who has died in the past. Anybody? What do we do in this sort of instant? Oh, good, Howard, come. I'm sorry, I didn't mean good. Thank you, Howard. Please, your Hebrew name?
Chaim Benjamin.
We are reading Ki Tevo, chapter 26, verses 1 through 12, I think. So Howard will find it here. Yeah. Okay.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. When you enter the land that the Lord your God is giving you as a heritage, and you occupy it and settle in it, you shall take some of every first fruit of the soil, which you harvest from the land that the Lord your God is giving you, put it in a basket, and go to the place where the Lord your God will choose to establish his name. You shall go to the priest in charge at that time and say to him, I acknowledge this day before the Lord your God that I have entered the land which the Lord swore to our fathers to give us. The priest shall take the basket from your hand and set it down in front of the altar of the Lord your God.
Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Natan Lanu Torat Emet V'chayei Olam Nota B'tochenu Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen.
It's the yard site of my favorite aunt Goldie, Lippy, St. Louis. And unfortunately, her daughter died 3 weeks ago, 3.5 weeks ago. She was not only my best first cousin, but she was a dear, dear friend. Miss her terribly.
Thank you. Okay, for our second aliyah, anyone who is celebrating something, has something interesting and fun to tell us, or just like to come up here to make your voice heard? Somebody come up. Oh, good, Eric. And Jim, good.
Chaim ben Yosef Miriam.
Eric Winston, and my Hebrew name is Yitzhak ben Zelgubahana.
Baruch Adonai. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Baruch Adonai HaMorach. Baruch Adonai HaMorach Le'olam Va'ed. Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech Olam Asher Bachar Banu Mikol Hamim V'natan Lanu Et Torato. Baruch Atah Adonai Noten HaTorah.
Amen. You shall then recite as follows before the Lord your God, and you'll recognize this. My father was a fugitive Aramaean. He went down to Egypt with meager numbers and sojourned there, but there he became a great and very populous nation. The Egyptians dealt harshly with us and oppressed us. They imposed heavy labor upon us. We cried to the Lord, the God of our fathers, and the Lord heard our plea and saw our plight, our misery, and our oppression. The Lord freed us from Egypt by a mighty hand, by an outstretched arm and awesome power, and by signs and portents. He brought us to this place and gave us this land, a land flowing with milk and honey. Wherefore I now bring the first fruits of the soil which you, O Lord, have given me. You shall leave it before the Lord your God and bow low before the Lord your God.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher natan lanu Torah emet v'kayei olam nata b'tohenu Baruch atah Adonai noten haTorah.
I'm happy to be up here to bless the reading of the Torah, which I've read many a time preparing for the Devar today, and the fact that it was a year ago when we thought we were over COVID that I did my last Devar, which happened to be the next chapter and verses.
Of course.
And that I've kept my covenant by spending several hours this week preparing for today and being here for Shabbat.
Excellent.
Holy Jim.
With you all.
And I'm here to honor Sima Oppenheimer's birthday today.
Nice. Happy birthday,
Birthday,
Sima.
Sima.
She's watching, I believe.
We're
Hopefully.
thinking of you. Okay, thanks.
Sure. This goes in here. Here? Good. And I'll put this on there. What is that? While the Torah is still out, I'd like to do the Mishabera prayers. These are prayers on page 253 or 371. For those who may benefit from our prayers and our blessings, if you have someone or some people to think about, have us pray for, please come up here and we'll speak into the microphone, their names.
I'd like to mention Debbie Simmons, Mark Booth, Kathy Booth, Eddie Koo, and our daughter, Sabrina Martin. Thank you.
Carol Shucklock.
Kurt Gombatz, Mort Goodman, and Paul Schiffer.
My brother, Barry Greenstein, Jenny, who is having chemotherapy as we speak, and to the continued good health of our son Mike, 3 years, healthy and clean.
David Kroll, Eric Winston, Elaine Edelman, Beverly Douglas, Phyllis Axelrod, and
Sima asked me to read these names: Fred Valfer, Jay Harris, Nellie Phillips, Evie Anderson, Sami Olnick, Dana Phillips, Sandy Grossman, Peggy Duncan, myself, Eric Winston, and Sharon Renner.
Judah Hartle and the Smith family, Bobby Miller, and Jeannie Erickson.
Heather Renee Moeller, Michelle Davis, Luke Talby, Adam Kahn, David Kroll, Carolyn Lilly, Ray Walden, and Kaylin Kaeg.
Deb Frischer's mom, who's recovering from broken hip. My friend Chella, whose husband is awaiting, is in the hospital. Alberto's waiting for a new heart to be transplanted. and all those in our group here, in the community, and the world and universe who need our healing prayers.
My sister, who has a very strange form of leukemia, her name is Deborah Reff.
Sam Kamen, Abby Thomas, Carl and Leslie Sebastian, Jack and Bernice Sandbrand, Bob and Carolyn Johnston, Gordon Glenn, Gloria Harris, Ellen Kahn, Adele Levy, Lee Levy, Herb Lubick, Mary Marshall, Larry Krause, Esther Rosenberg, Sharon Ritter, Rhonda Schwartz, Sylvia Witterspan, Brophy Toledo.
Arlene Kimmelman-Techner.
Barbara Baranque, David Hollab, and and everyone, everywhere who needs our prayers. We're on page 253 in the middle of the page. Gordon. Misheberak avotenu mikor habracha limotenu. May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberak imotenu mikor habraha liavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shalema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen. Okay, Bert, would you help out for Hagba'ah? Feeling strong today? Mizo HaTorah Asher Samoshet Lifnei B'nei Yisrael Abi Adonai V'yad Moshe Shosha Devarim Shosha
This is the Torah which Moses placed before the people of Israel, God's word through the hand of Moses.
be seated. And now it's time for the Devar Torah. Jim Spivak.
Today's Torah portion is Ki Tavo, Deuteronomy 26:1 to 29:8. When you'll come. So here we are in the valley between Mount Ebal and Mount Gerizim, getting ready to cross the Jordan River into the land of milk and honey. Moses is nearing the end of his speeches and last instruction to the Israelites. We all know he isn't going to be joining them. These two mountains stand in stark contrast to each other in appearance. Mount Gerizim, located in the south in the valley of Shaham, is replete with gardens, covered with terraces on its slope, green, fertile. While Mount Ebal on the north side is steep, barren, and desolate. I know this picture, for I have hiked many mountains and been on many mountains and see how beautiful one can be and how barren another can be. Life can be a mirror image of these mountains in nature. I think the reference to these contrasting mountains has a psychological significance in this parashah. In Ki Tavo, Moses is continuing with the reoccurring theme. His stories include many reminders of the past and emphasis on the need to keep their covenant with God and obey his or her commandments, as set out in the Torah after they crossed the Jordan into the promised land. Here's a brief summary of some of the points. The Israelites are instructed to express their gratitude to God for their bountiful harvest and freedom from slavery by tithing 0.1% of their first crops in the promised land for the Levites, the strangers, the orphans, and the widows. The opening verses are very positive. They are told to cross the Jordan River to write on big stones covered with plaster. The word is lime, but it's plaster. Quote, the words of this instruction very clearly, unquote, God's commandments for all to see. 6 tribes shall stand on Mount Gerizim to bless all the Israelites, and 6 tribes shall stand on Mount Ebal, where the Levites are to shout in a loud voice the 12 acts for which the accuser is to be cursed. And after each one is recited by the Levites, the people shall respond, amen, I agree. Interestingly, most of these violations are somewhat trivial in nature. The Israelites are told that if they obey God's commandments faithfully, they shall receive every blessing imaginable. They are also told that if they do not fulfill their covenant with God, many curses will descend upon them. So what did I take from this parasha besides the words themselves? Here are a few of my thoughts. One, a bit trivial, but it still sticks with me. On multiple occasions, we read the phrase, the land of milk and honey. In biblical days, milk was goat's milk and honey was dates. We now know it as cow's milk and honey from bees. It was first introduced at Exodus 3, verse 8, referring to the promised land flowing with milk and honey. It is used several other times in the Torah. Why is this phrase repeated in this parasha? Some say it is hope for the future. Others say it is a reward for our 40 years of wandering, a full generation of wandering. One commentary says it indicates the land has abundant fertility. At the same, it can be viewed both physically as a description of the land and spiritually, metaphorically. At the same time, having seen Israel, having seen the land, I can relate to both descriptions. It certainly paints a mental picture to me as well as a spiritual one. Next, the parashah is unique in that it is replete with quotes, passage, including the unique poem that Jane read to you. I was going to encourage you to read it, but she read it to you, that the Israelites are supposed to recite with their crop. But the underlying message is one of blessings to those who keep the covenant with God, and curses to those who do not follow God's commandment. These contrasts are always present in this parashah. In fact, there are 4 times as many curses as listed for not following God's commandments as there are blessings for keeping the covenants. And the details of the curses themselves are vivid and personal, while most of the blessings are somewhat vague, general, and broad. What is a curse? What is a blessing? These 2 words are definitely considered antonyms, but does God actually curse someone when they reject God and fail to follow God's commandments? Ponder this question and apply it according to your own life's experiences and commitments to God and the Torah. In this parashah, they are asked to renew their covenant with God that they made at Mount Sinai. That one was made long ago, and in reality by a previous generation, because most of those standing before the Jordan are a new generation. But it is a different commitment this time. They are going to be on their own without Moses instructing them. They are going to succeed as individuals, as a people, and as a nation in God's eyes, dependent upon their keeping the covenant and obeying the commandments Hashem has given them. The cloud by day and fire by night won't be following them. Their own conscience, their own acts will guide them all the days of their lives. In life, we all have blessings and curses in a broad sense. But do we think of them as blessings and curses? Do we use the words out loud or in our head? I am blessed. I have been blessed. My good fortunes is a blessing because I have followed the commandments of the Torah. Or, I am cursed. I have been cursed. My misfortune was caused by failing to follow God's commandments in the Torah. I doubt many of us have ever consciously had these thoughts. For me, it is more or less one-sided. Because for me, my blessing is that so much of my life has been positive and tied to positive attitudes, and so little has been negative and negative attitudes and negative events. And yes, there have been negative events in my life, but I believe I have been shaped by them in a positive way. Is God responsible for this? Maybe. But I like to think that one is responsible for what life has given me. I have made choices in life, what I do, how I act, how I think. I try to enjoy all that I can and do my blessings and get my blessing for doing it. I make fun of everything I do. I snicker at her. I make jokes to my boss because it's not work when it's fun. And my blessing is good fortunes and the results of my conscious and unconscious acts. So I ask each of you to do your own self-examination. This is the time of year we do that. Reflect on your personal blessings and curses and ask yourself what and why of them. Ask yourself, do I feel God's presence? For me, the answer is somewhat yes. I feel God's presence when I am one with nature. In the mountains, in the ocean, especially when I am alone in those places with my own thoughts. I also at least reach out to God when I sit here and we have private meditation. So in that sense, I do feel his or her presence. Ask yourself, do I consciously think of God's commandments that I keep? I challenge you to ask yourself some of these questions and make at least a mental note of the answers you come up with. In Ki Tavo, Moses has continued with the story of the Torah leading up to his delivering them to the promised land, the land of milk and honey. In the last verse of this week's Torah portion, he says, quote, "As I led you 40 years in the wilderness," unquote. He's imploring them to put everything in context, to remember from where they came to where they're going, to, quote, "observe the words of this covenant and do them so that you'll understand all that you do." Now, the Tikkun uses the word succeed. Friedman uses understand. And he puts emphasis on it. I pondered that. This is the Devar I wrote this past week. After spending hours, luckily I had 2 or 3 short days, reading, researching, pondering, and writing. And I finished it yesterday afternoon with the thought that something was missing, that I had not really gotten to the point of the parashah. And I wasn't comfortable with it. And I told that to my wife when I got home last night. But as I lay in bed last night, suddenly it struck me what was bothering me about this Devar and this parashah. I think the last verse in the words of understanding was bothering me. I knew the underlying theme was one of contrast because I put it in here several times. And I included it in what I wrote. But what really bothered me with this was the contrast devoted so much words and so much energy to the negative, to the curses. And so much of the curses with so little devoted to the blessings. So little to the positive. I was not bothered by the instructions themselves. I was not bothered by emphasis on the importance of following God's commandments in the Torah. I was bothered by the fact the writers of the Torah felt the need to be so negative, to try so hard to use fear as a motivator in the text of the Torah. Why couldn't the writers do the opposite? Write more about the positive, more about the blessings, more about the rewards from the good acts and from following the commandments? The answer itself we will leave to another day. As I said earlier, I believe I have received my blessings in life by focusing on the positive and perhaps by following God's commandments. And hopefully, I now have a little bit better understanding of what it's all about. Shabbat Shalom.
Lots to think about. Thank you, Jim. We're going to go into the Aleinu, which you will find on page 282 or 586 in your book at the bottom, and then we'll jump to 287 or 591. So 282, please rise. Aleinu l'shabbeach la'adon ha'kol. Now, do I open the curtain? Haratzot velo samanu kimoshbachot adama shelo sam kilkenu kahem v'goralenu kichol hamonam anaknu korim umishachavim umodim lifnei melech malchei hamlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. 287. Ema V'haya Adonai L'melech al kol ha'aretz Bayom hahu Yeh Adonai echad. Ushemo, Ushemo Echad. Please be seated. On page 291 or 595 is a nice piece of writing by Rabbi Richard Levy. It is hard to sing of oneness when the world is not complete, when those who once brought wholeness to our life have gone, and naught but memory can fill the emptiness their passing leaves behind. But memory can tell us only what we were in company with those we loved. It cannot help us find what each of us alone must now become. Yet no one is really alone. Those who live no more echo still within our thoughts and words, and what they did is part of what we have become. We do best homage to our dead when we live our lives more fully, even in the shadow of our loss. For each of our lives is worth the life of the whole world. In each one is the breath of the ultimate one. In affirming the one, we affirm the worth of each one of whose life now ended brought us closer to the source of life, in whose unity no one is alone and every life finds purpose. On page 293 or 597, our thoughts turn to those who have departed this earth, our own loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people whose graves are unmarked, and those of every race and nation whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. As we remember them, we meditate on the meaning of love and loss, of life and death. And if you are remembering someone at this time, would you please come forward and share their name with us?
My aunt Goldie Lippy and my cousin Suzanne Bierman.
And we'll recite the Kaddish on page 294. Please rise. Yit Kedal v'yit Kadash Shemei Rabbah V'alma Divra Kirute V'yamlik Malchute V'chayechon u'v'yomechon Uv'kayed kol Beit Yisrael Ba'agala B'zman Kariv V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mivarach Le'olam Olamea Maya Yit Barak v'yishtabak v'yit Pa'ar v'yit Ramam v'yit Naseh v'yit Hadar v'yit Alev v'yit Halal Shemei D'Kudisha B'richu Le'elam min kol berchata v'shirata Tushbechata v'nechamata Da'amiran v'alma v'yimru Amen. Yehei Shalom Rabba Mim Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru Amen. Oseh Shalom Bimromav, Hu Yaseh Shalom, Aleinu V'al Kol Yisrael, V'yimru Amen. Please be seated. One more bit. It's just a reminder about Slichot and High Holiday services. This is a serious holiday season. We are encouraged to look inward into our souls, to see what we may have done this past year that was not praiseworthy, and then ask ourselves what we might do to improve our conduct. Look inward, not at who is wearing what or who is sitting with whom. Shabbat Shalom. Gordon, announcements?
First of all, wow, what a great turnout today, huh? Look at everybody here. Everybody should just applaud everybody else for showing up today, huh? How many? 24 people? I think that's 4 more than last week. Things are really looking up. And for those of you in YouTube land, if you can manage to come here, please join us. This is very, very positive news. Again, I want to thank Louise Winhild for leading the services today. Want to thank Jane Lazaro for reading Torah and Jim Spivak for a very insightful Devar Torah. Everybody for showing up and lending your voices to the service, because that adds to the ruach that we experience. Next week, Jim Spivak will be leading services. Janice Alper will be reading Torah. Susan Zale will be giving the Devar Torah. We're all looking forward to that. If there aren't any other announcements from the floor, thank you, Shabbat Shalom, and we'll be outside for the Osei Shalom Circle and the Oneg.